Hi, OMS family. I wanted to review the basics of PBIS. This is mainly for our new staff, but I think it's always good every year for every staff to have a refresher. Because just like our students, we may think we know everything or we know better, but it's always good to have a refresher of the why and the reasoning behind PBIS. So, welcome to Oatman Middle School and PBIS. PBIS first stands for Positive Behavior Interventions and Supports. So just a quick, because I will be sending this out, so I'm going to go a little faster so I can respect everyone's time. But I will send the link to this out as well if you'd like to look into more into the videos and the challenges towards the end. So it's a data-driven decision-making framework for establishing the social, culture, and behavioral supports needed for a school to be an effective learning environment. I always shorten that by saying it's about culture and climate and a welcoming environment where we reinforce positive behaviors. So the big ideas of school-wide PBIS. Identify and define behavior expectations. So that would be our school 4Rs, and our behavior matrix will also be linked in the email. Teach and reteach behavior expectations. This is one of the biggest ones, especially right now during COVID. So are we reteaching expectations, or are we continuously saying students know better and they're just choosing not to? Some adults know better with speeding and while they're driving, wearing seatbelts, texting and driving, and we still do it. So it's about reteaching the why behind these expectations and just reinforcing when we see it going well. Monitor expected behavior, and that can mean positive too. Reinforce our Schoology ballot badges. Encourage and acknowledge appropriate behavior. And correct behavior errors through a continuum of consequences that begin with teaching and reteaching. It's not consequences in terms of punishments. It's consequences in terms of natural consequences, communication, support, and especially teaching and reteaching. Use of data for decision making. This is an area of growth that is needed for Oatman. And this year, it's always going to look a little differently. In the staff meeting, I will be going over Swiss, our data system. But the theory is we're really putting in minor and major behaviors into Swiss so that we can really track and make decisions based off that data. And then all of our staff can access that data that helps with decision making. So like Clevenger, Hines, our student support staff, our admin, so we can see any consistencies or problematic repetitive behaviors. So a lot of you know these, but we got to memorize them. We ask the kids to. So Oatman, our school-wide motto, our phrases is "We are for Oatman." Get it? Like the 4 Rs. And we really focus on respect here at Oatman Middle School. So there's respecting yourself, respecting others, respecting property, and respecting learning. The reason I have the sign here is, especially if you're new here, make sure you pay attention around the school. We do have what the 4 Rs look like in certain areas around the school. I know it might look a little different with COVID in terms of like adding 6 feet social distancing and mask wearing, but otherwise it's the same concept. So please check one of those out this week if you can, and feel free to point those out to your students and other staff if needed. So the 4 Rs everywhere. Around our school, we represent the 4 Rs all over our building. They give students instructions of how to act in that space. It's not what you shouldn't do, it's what you should be doing. It's about positive phrasing. I did a positive phrasing request in one of the daily digests. It's always really good, instead of saying like don't run, you would say please walk. So really pay attention to those negative words that you might say during the day that you don't even realize. So there's more examples. So the tiers, you might hear me saying this, and new staff, this is new to you, but we define behaviors in tiers, and we also define interventions in terms of tiers. Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. So students who are doing what they're supposed to be doing majority of the time is Tier 1. That normally, it doesn't always fit this way, is about 80% of our student population. Tier 2 students spend more time on task than students in Tier 3. They can normally be redirected if there's a relationship or an intervention in place. They might need more reminders than Tier 1 students, and they might be asked to leave on class on occasion. This is sometimes they get defined as apathetic, and it's more finding the cause of the behavior. I mean, could it be energy? Could it be lack of understanding? So Tier 3, those students would get more targeted interventions, like small group interventions. Tier 1 students would benefit from whole class interventions, like recognition systems, our tardy policy from last year, where every student has the same intervention or expectation. Tier 2 might be more like check in, check out. I suppose that might even be tier 3. But my whole point is it's for like small groups of behaviors. Like we can do these things. And tier 2 equals about 15% of our population, our classroom, and tier 3 equals about 5%. These are the kids that really take a lot of our energy and our focus during the school year. They're repeatedly moved from class, they receive most of your attention when they are present, and they almost can be a safety concern. So tier 3 are your students that might need individual interventions. Okay. You guys can look at that later. It's talking about interventions. So I really stress culture. That's the main thing, if you know me, that I really try to focus on as a PBIS coach here at Oltmann. So I always say, what's the culture of our school? And it's something we should really evaluate this year. What is our culture? What does it feel like? What does an outsider feel when they walk into our building? So things to think about. So you can tell a lot about culture by going to the staff lounge or just walking in the building. I like to talk to our substitute teachers and just say, was someone positive to you today? How did the kids treat you? That gives me an idea of our culture here at Oltmann. Things to think about this year is if a parent or an outside adult walked into our school, what would they see, hear, or feel? If a student gets asked a question from the visitor, what will the reaction be? This one was huge when we went to the PBIS training. So if a random adult says to a kid, hey, can you come here? Do they assume they are in trouble? And that always makes me sad when I pull kids from class for pictures. They're always like, what did I do? And that tells me we have a little bit of growth in our culture where kids can get pulled just as much or more for positive than they are for reinforcement or punishment. Do we have a culture where students feel safe to self-correct their actions? I always say gum under desk. If a kid is putting a gum under their desk, the question is why. They may understand they can't have gum, but for some reason they have a fear of standing up and throwing it away. So what is the culture in your classroom? Do kids understand and feel safe if they need to correct and blow their nose or go to the bathroom? Do they know what it looks like in your classroom and how to do it safely and appropriately? Research principles about PBIS. Behavior is learned. You are not born evil. You are not born wanting to disappoint people. Behavior can be changed. It just depends how learned it is. If it's been learned over multiple years, it's going to take longer to change. Lasting behavioral change is more likely with a positive rather than a punitive. No student should be intentionally or unintentionally humiliated or belittled. So you have to really think about that, especially in a classroom. How are we redirecting behavior? Are we singling students out? Are we making others look at that student? Do we know what students can handle what? So my example with that is always sarcasm. Really knowing how to use it or not using it at all. If it's used inappropriately, it can be very belittling or humiliating. Rethinking. We gotta look at ourselves, folks. So we change student behavior by changing adult behavior. So interventions is changing in staff procedures and practices. We are in this together, and I know change is hard. But I always say the biggest sentence that scares me in the human language is, well, we've always done it that way. That is something I hope I never say, because I always want to be willing to change and address things, and I'm hoping we as a staff feel the same way. So really look at yourself and our own coworkers around the building. Do we role model the behaviors we want our students to show? Are we passionate? Do we understand there's a cause for every behavior, everyone, even our own? So really understanding the cause. They did not wake up and say, I'm gonna make so-and-so angry today. Things to think about. So food for thought. This one always blows my mind every year I relook at this slide. If a child doesn't know how to read, we teach them how to read. If a child doesn't know how to swim, we teach them how to swim. If a child doesn't know how to multiply, we teach them how to multiply. If a child doesn't know how to drive, we teach them how to drive. If a child doesn't know how to behave, what do? Do we punish? Do we give consequences? Or do we teach them how to behave? We can't finish the last sentence. If we can't finish the last sentence as automatically as we do the others, there's a change that's needed in our building. So, little facts. This one always blows my mind. For a child to learn something new, that includes curriculum, you guys, it needs to be repeated 8 times. For an adult to learn something new, it needs to be repeated 5 times. For a child to unlearn something and then relearn something new 28 times. So again, I know we assume we already told them this. We've gone over that multiple times. Ask yourself, have I gone over it 28 times? Okay. And have I done it in a positive and reinforcing way? Okay, I always say I don't know, my little Kirchner quote that my goal is to make it positive and popular is I want to give positive a voice. We hear negative all the time. This kid's frustrating me. School's hard. I'm overworked, which all might be true. I'm not saying they're not true. But do you focus on the students that are doing what they should, the staff members that seek out, that make you happy? Do you do self care? So it's making the good contagious. Be that person that fills other people's buckets. So PBIS really does the 4-to-1 acknowledgement to correction system. Something to think about, and there's a penny challenge at the end if you really want to see if you do this. Students are not born with bad behaviors. Students do not learn when presented contingent adversive consequences. They do learn better ways of behaving by being taught directly and receiving positive feedback. Rationales for acknowledgement. It's one of the most powerful tools for shaping or behaving or changing behavior. I know for a fact if my principal comes and pulls me or comes into my class and just says, thank you for what you're doing or whatever, oh my gosh, does that reinforce my behavior to know I'm being noticed by others? So even though we're adults, we still like acknowledgement. We still like positive phrasing. Create positive interactions, rapport, and relationships with students. It will help you in long term increase instructional time and minimize students' time out of your classroom. Our goal is to keep them in the classroom. Acknowledgement systems prompt adults to recognize expected behavior. Every time an adult interacts with the student, it's an instructional moment, whether it's curriculum based or behavior based. Be a bucket filler. Again, you'll get this. But I always use buckets. My example I tell the students is like, I give them a pretend bucket and I say, did you eat 3 meals today? Did you have a cell phone? Are your parents still together? Do you talk to your friends once a day? So these are all things being put in their buckets. And obviously there are kids who can't put things into their buckets for those example statements. Was a teacher positive to you today? How are you doing in school? So you have to think about the kids that can't put those in, or even the adults. If you guys, we have low buckets too. Please don't be scared. If I have a full bucket, if I'm having a good year, I'm going to help others more often. If your bucket's not that full, you might need help, and it's okay to accept help from your peers. We are in this together. We are a family, and the same goes for our students. So try to figure out, if you can, I always do a bucket for each of your kids, and I try to think about how full they are. It also lets me know how much I know that student. Do I know them enough to know what's in their bucket? Do I know their home life? Do I know if they sit alone at lunch? These are all things we should know about our students. I know it's extra work, you guys, but it's why I got into this job, and I'm assuming it's why you did as well. So honor the absent. This is a top 20 training. Oh, I have to do this every year. I could do this. So the idea is you could say 2 out of the 3 of the following, but you cannot do all 3. So I might be very angry at a coworker, especially that Erin Miller. I'm just kidding. I'm going to use her because she's always positive and awesome. But let's say Erin made me angry one day. I can say her name and I can say something negative, but then I can't do number 3. I can't tell someone else. So that example is journaling, things like that, or talking to yourself, talking to your dog, maybe. I could also say something negative about Erin. I could tell someone else, but I have to make sure I don't say her name or any context clues that show that it's Erin. I can't say she's in Lower Orange and teaches language arts. So I really want you guys, feel free to take a picture of this one and see if you can honor the absent, and that includes our students. If we are talking about a student, are we using it to really help correct behavior and get reinforcement, or are we doing it to vent and be angry? Okay, something to think about. I'm not punishing any of our staff, you guys. These are human instincts. We want to vent. Negatives louder. It takes really thought and purpose to really change our thought process on how we do that type of stuff. Classroom procedures, especially this year, make sure you teach and reteach them. I can include this in the link as well, but it's just something to think about. I always tell teachers and staff members to pick 2 or 3. Don't attack all of these, you guys. Pick 2 or 3 and say, do my students know how to do that? Do your students know what it looks like in your classroom or your area to go to the bathroom, to ask for help? So don't assume. They know not to get up and sharpen their pencil. Don't assume. Teach them. Reteach 28 times to reteach a behavior. I sent that in one of the daily digests, but again, please stop running. Do we run in the hall? Please walk. Please put that phone away right now. Where should phones be during class? Do you need help? Is there something you need? Is there something important you need your phone for? I'll let you guys look at that challenge later, but the penny challenge is an amazing one that I will bring back this year as well, but it's something you might want to check out. And there's the definition of the penny challenge. The last thing I want to end with that really stuck with me at one of my PBIS trainings, it was amazing, is if they were giving students tickets to go to one classroom, any age, would you have a line at your door? Would kids want to come back to you? I kind of joke, like, be the popular teacher. I'm not saying fake it or reward kids, but be the teacher kids want to learn from, be the staff member they want to visit. I said this to the bus driver training as well. Would you have tickets if they could pick their bus driver, their bus? Would you have a line out your door? I know I want a line out my door. It's something I strive for every year. I might not get it some years. I might have a low bucket, but it is my goal. So ask yourself, would you have a line at your door if you were to give your former students a ticket? And if not, what can you do to change your behavior? So you can watch us. It's our former Tier 2 students and what they're asking for from our students. Just students that have struggled in school and with adults and what they say they need. Again, I'll let you watch that on your own time. And there's some intervention apps. We also have Heinz, Clevenger, myself. If you're really struggling with the behavior after you have tried to fix it, please visit and ask for help. We are all here together. We have cultural liaisons. We have counselors, admin. We can find an intervention for you. It might take us working together, but let us know. And then there's links at the bottom as well. But if you have any questions about PBIS, but just ask yourself, what is the culture of the school? What is the culture of your classroom? Please message me. Thank you for watching this video. I know you guys are busy right now, so to take time and do this means a lot to me. It shows me you care about the culture of our school. Have a wonderful week. We can do this. Please let me know if you need your bucket filled, and I can do something nice. I can't give a hug, but I can, like, buy Starbucks for you. And don't forget staff favorites and to spend time on each other and recognize each other. Have a great day.